Hello and welcome, my friends and viewers, to this week's episode of Legendlore, where I draw and talk about monsters, characters, gods, and other things from D&D 5th edition, all while giving a small but quickly digestible history about them. Together we go over their origins within the game, how they're utilized in the modern edition, and how you guys can utilize them in your own games. This week we'll be going over the divine smite machine known as the Paladin, and if you already know how the Paladin works and you're just here for the cool character ideas, magic item selections, or the homebrew magic item, you guys can check the description for the timestamps on each part of the video. I like to make sure that you get the exact information that you're looking for as soon as possible, but with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Paladins have a 1d10 hit dice and have proficiency in wisdom and charisma saving throws, and can carry shields, wear light, medium, and heavy armor, and are able to wield both simple and martial weapons of any type. They may also choose to be proficient in 2 of the following skills, that being athletics, insight, intimidation, medicine, persuasion, and religion. At first level, the Paladin gains access to the class features of Divine Sense and Lay on Hands. For Divine Sense, as an action, until the end of your next turn, you can detect the location of any creature that is of the Celestial, Fiend, or Undead creature type, within 60 feet of you so long as they are not behind total cover. Upon detection, you learn the type of creature that it is, but not its identity. A good example is that you may learn that the person that you're talking to is undead, but you would not learn information such as its name or what kind of undead it is. You wouldn't learn that Count Strahd von Zarovich is Count Strahd von Zarovich, nor that he's a vampire. Additionally, with Divine Sense, you can also detect the presence of any location or object that has been consecrated or desecrated, as if it had been cast with the spell Hallow. You can use your Divine Sense a number of times equal to 1 plus your Charisma modifier, and you regain all spent uses on a long rest. Then, with Lay on Hands, this gives the Paladin a small pool of hit points that they can use to heal themselves or others by touching them as an action. The pool being equal to 5 times their Paladin level. This means that at 2nd level the Paladin has 10 hit points, at 10th level the Paladin has 50, and so on and so forth. Additionally, 5 of these hit points can be spent in order to cure the target of any disease or poison effect that they're suffering from, and multiple effects can be cured with 1 touch, so long as 5 hit points are spent to cure each one. At level 2, you gain access to Divine Smite, as well as your fighting style and your spellcasting abilities. For your fighting style, the Paladin can choose from a number of different ones, all of which are listed below. Each one adds their own benefit, such as the potential for increased damage via dueling or great weapon fighting, or more utility and protective options such as defense and protection. Overall, this will inform how your Paladin works within the party, and if they're focused on being more of a damage-dealing smite machine, or a defense-focused support tank. After that, there's spellcasting, which uses the Paladin's Charisma modifier. For spell attacks, your bonus to hit is going to be your proficiency bonus plus your Charisma modifier, and your spell save DC is going to be that same exact number plus 8. The highest spell level that a Paladin will ever be able to cast is 5th level. They also don't get access to cantrips, unfortunately, but like all classes, they regain all of their expended spell slots on a long rest. And then finally, there's the Paladin's bread and butter, the Divine Smite, which builds off of spell slots by allowing the Paladin to use them in a special, different way. Rather than casting spells, the Paladin can expend a spell slot on a successful attack to deal additional radiant damage to a target, adding 2d8 damage for a 1st level spell slot, and an additional 1d8 damage for every spell slot above 1st level. Plus, if the target is of the Fiend or Undead creature types, they suffer an additional 1d8 radiant damage. For example, Rick the Paladin hits a zombie with an attack and decides to use Smite by giving up a 2nd level spell slot. That's 2d8 for the base Smite, plus an additional 1d8 for the use of the 2nd level spell slot, as well as an additional 1d8 for the target being an Undead, which results in a total of 4d8 radiant damage to the target on top of his weapon's normal base damage. Another thing is that Paladins can smite as many times as they want per round, so long as their attack successfully hits, which means that they can deal some serious damage so long as they have spell slots to back it up. Just be careful not to let them run out, and don't always use your spell slots for just smites, as Paladins have some deceptively useful utility spells such as Bless or Protection from Evil and Good, which can free up the Druid, Cleric, or Bard to do some cool stuff beyond just support spells. At level 3, Paladins get their Divine Health class feature, and can also choose their Sacred Oath subclass. For Divine Health, Paladins simply become passively immune to disease, meaning that they can't succumb to things like vampirism, lycanthropy, or some classic D&D diseases like mummy rot. Then, for the different Oath subclasses, the Paladin can choose the Oath of the Ancients, Conquest, Crown, Devotion, Glory, Redemption, Vengeance, and the Oath of the Watchers. They can also choose to forsake their oath and become an Oathbreaker instead. This avenue of subclass selection makes the Paladin one of the few classes that can actually change their subclass through action by breaking or swearing a new oath, and you gain new special class features from this oath at levels 7, 15, and finally, 20. At level 4, a Paladin can choose to either increase one of their ability scores by 2, or 2 of their ability scores by 1. Alternatively, if your Dungeon Master is allowing the use of the Feats optional rule, you may choose to gain a feat, which adds a bit more variety in your character's build and mechanics. We'll go over some of the best feats for Paladins later on in this video, and you gain an additional ability score increase or feat at levels 8, 12, 16, and 19 for a total of 5. At level 5, Paladins get extra attack, which simply allows them to be able to make 2 attack rolls instead of 1 when taking the attack action. Incidentally, Paladins can smite on both of these attacks if they both hit, so just be sure to keep that in mind. At level 6, Paladins get their first Aura ability, that being the Aura of Protection, which passively allows you and your allies to add your Charisma bonus to their saving throws, so long as they're within 10 feet of you and both them and the Paladin are conscious. This is incredibly useful for the survivability of your party, and this aura increases to cover all allies within 30 feet at level 18. Consequently, at level 10, Paladins get the Aura of Courage, which allows all within the Paladin's 10-foot aura to become immune to the frightened condition, or to have the frightened condition ended on them when they enter within range. This is very useful for monsters who have terrifying presence abilities such as dragons and whatnot, and this aura also increases to 30 feet at 18th level. Next, at level 11, Paladins gain Improved Divine Smite, which basically allows the Paladin's attacks to all deal 1d8 radiant damage without needing to actually smite or spend a spell slot. And finally, at level 14, Paladins get Cleansing Touch, which allows them to use their action to end one spell on themselves or on one willing creature that they touch. This is very good for freeing allies who are touched by, say, Hold Person or Dominate, and if you use this feature a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier, regaining all spent uses on a long rest. Now with the base class out of the way, let's talk about the Paladin's Sacred Oath subclasses. Your choice is going to help inform you on the tenets and code that your Paladin lives by, as well as what they decide is worth swearing an oath to, as well as what gods you may worship. That said, Paladins don't necessarily need to worship a deity or entity in order to wield their power, which often brings many a DM into the cosmological debate as to where Paladin's power really comes from. That's a rabbit hole for another time, let's just go over the subclasses. The Oath of the Ancients is one sworn to protect nature itself, or the spirits that dwell within it, such as Fae and Elves. It's paladins seeking to fight as champions of light and primordial good. They can wield druidic spells, grant their allies resistance to damage, and turn or banish malevolent Fae and fiends, as well as become an outer paragon of nature with a wild, dryad-like form. Paladins of Conquest seek to dominate and decimate, mowing their enemies down and extinguishing any hope of resistance or rebellion. While this can easily take an evil avenue, Conquest Paladins are actually great for constant pursuit and reliable damage, able to reflect damage back to their enemies, emanate a frightening aura, and grant themselves immense bonuses to their attacks for that perfectly needed cinematic smite. Paladins who swear oaths to the crown are your Kingsguard, your knight in shining armor paladins, dedicated to the laws of the feudal system and the great civilizations that are beholden to them. These paladins are very good support tanks, with the ability to heal their allies with areas of effect, force enemies to only be able to attack them, and absorb the damage dealt to their enemies so that they may suffer it instead, keeping the weaker members of the party alive for just that much longer. In the similar vein, Devotion Paladins are the whitest of white knights, dedicated to the poetic ideals of justice, chivalry, and serving the greater good, whatever that might actually be. Mechanically, they are master damage dealers against undead and fiends, specifically able to add their charisma bonus to attack rolls, as well as immunizing themselves and their party to being charmed, and conjuring an aura that can passively deal radiant damage to enemies within it. Glory-seeking paladins, on the other hand, are dedicated to the ideals of heroism and instilling themselves into legend, believing in taking action and leaving legacies over making grand claims and propping up mere stories. As such, they're very good at accomplishing physical feats, as well as buffing their allies, ranging from bonuses to movement speed, to increases in their armor class, to bestowing upon them temporary hit points for longer, more story-worthy fights. Now for Oathbreakers. These are your Blackguard paladins who have since forsaken their old oaths, either in the service of a dark power, or because they truly have lost their faith in the ideals that they once fought for. As such, Oathbreakers are cursed, or perhaps blessed, with the ability to command great fear, control legions of undead, and cause psychic damage to those that they affect with their frightening aura. On the flip side, there's the Oath of Redemption Paladin, who is focused on atoning for their past transgressions and focus on finding a peaceful, diplomatic solution before having to turn to violence. This is my personal favorite Paladin subclass, as it has many great options regarding staying power and keeping allies in the fight, such as both absorbing damage for allies and reflecting damage back to enemies, and being able to regain hit points each round so long as they are under half of their maximum hit point amount. And I personally am a sucker for a good redemption story. For paladins who swear oaths of vengeance, these knights exist to punish those who have committed grievous acts and enact their own sense of justice, sometimes to their own detriment. These paladins exist to deal damage and maneuver about the battlefield, granting themselves advantage on attacks against enemies, turning and abjuring any creature that they wish regardless of creature type, and eventually getting a pair of wings so that they don't have to wait for the fucking dragon to land before smiting it. And finally, there's the Oath of the Watchers, which is a bit of an odd man out when it comes to the subclasses, but does have a very interesting concept, as a knight sworn to protect their realm from extraplanar threats. This includes celestials, fae, fiends, aberrations, and elementals, so there's a variety of flavors that you can touch upon. But ultimately, the Watcher's Paladin is great at protecting their party from whatever lies beyond, granting them advantage on mental saving throws, adding their proficiency bonus to initiative rolls, and banishing extraplanar creatures back to their home plane. With the subclasses out of the way, when it comes to the flavor of the class, the Paladin's fantasy is that they're the dedicated holy knight, swearing to uphold to their tenets and protect their peers so long as it's in concordance with their oath. More often than not, this means that your Paladin will be wearing heavy armor and wielding a shield or sword, or going full attack dog with a two-handed great weapon. Your smites do grant you a distinct predisposition to hunting and killing undead and fiends, but this can change depending on the oath that you choose. As such, when making a Paladin character, think about not just how they keep their oath and express their devotion, but also the reason why they decided to swear that oath in the first place. Maybe an Oath of Ancients Paladin was taken in by a local fae as a child, and grew up to serve as their protector and champion out of gratitude. Or maybe a Paladin's family was corrupted and slain by a fiend or maligned fae, leading them to swear an Oath of Vengeance or an Oath of the Watchers to rain destruction down upon any creature who seeks to do the same to others. Going a little deeper into character creation, here are a few base character concepts to help you get the ball rolling with creating your Paladin PC or NPC. For starters, we have the Champion, which is a Paladin that is keen to represent the most ideal version of their oath. These Paladins are genuinely good-hearted and want to help anyone that they can in any way that they can, using their gifts to heal and protect those in need of their aid. Paladin knights who swear oaths to the crown can enact the justice of a local ruler, devotion paladins can literally devote themselves to helping others, and Watchers Paladins can swear to abjure and defeat the forces of evil fiends and aberrations. It's all about making the world a better place than they found it, and champions, while distinctly assured of their path and purpose, can face struggle and challenges in the form of failing to save others, encountering overwhelming odds, or witnessing unexpected brutality from the villain of your campaign, which can cause them to question if their efforts are enough to truly make the world more good than evil. For this character concept, the best subclasses, in my recommendation, are the Oaths of Devotion, Glory, Crown, Ancients, and Watchers who are focused on fiends and aberrations. Next, we have the Dark Knight, one of my personal favorite archetypes to play. The Dark Knight is the Paladin colored by negative emotion, which also serves as the drive for both his oath and his actions. Their horrific pasts or inciting incidents have made them focused and disciplined, but also cold and distant and slow to trust others until their party is able to break down their walls. With that said, if you're going to play this character, do be careful to not just be the silent hooded figure in the back of the room who never interacts with everybody, because D&D is a collaborative game and you're eventually going to need to join your party on some adventures. That said, an Ancients Paladin can swear to avenge their home forest that was burned down by a nearby kingdom's efforts to expand, or a Paladin who swears to defeat an enemy who killed their parent or master can take an oath of conquest or vengeance. And of course, there is always the classic Oathbreaker who became disillusioned and lost faith in their previous oath, either wielding their newly acquired dark powers proudly or seeking some new ideal to serve. The best subclasses for Dark Knights would be the Oath of the Ancients, Conquest, Devotion, Oathbreakers, Vengeance, and the Watchers who focus on Celestials and Fae. And lastly, we have the Atoner, which is a Paladin with a dark past who has begun to travel the road of devotion or change. They can either seek to right the wrongs they've committed in the past, or seek to forget their previous life in the pursuit of a new chapter. Obviously, the Oath of Redemption Paladin can be the most direct route for emulating this type of character, but others can fit depending on the context of their oath. An Oath of Vengeance Paladin can seek to avenge those who suffer under the oppression of a tyrant that they once served, or on the flip side, an Oath of the Crown or Devotion Paladin can have left their barbaric life behind in favor of serving and protecting a kind monarch. All this is to say that almost any Paladin's oath can be taken in both an evil or good context. It all entirely depends on the reason and or past events that shaped their worldview, as well as whatever you personally find enjoyable to play. Now, when it comes to selecting feats for your Paladin, here are a couple that I suggest that make great synergy between your abilities and your resource management. Actor is deceptively useful for a Paladin of a less than honest variety, able to impersonate and mimic the speech of others. This would be particularly beneficial for a character multiclassing into Paladin and Rogue or Bard, especially a swashbuckler who already makes use of their charisma in combat. Alert grants you a substantial bonus to initiative and protects you from being surprised by attacks that you can't see, be it by sneak attacks, invisibility, or whatever else. Charger is great for opening up combat with pushing enemies down or off ledges, as well as a hefty damage bonus. Meanwhile, Crusher, Piercer, and Slasher are all great for adding additional properties to your weapons depending on which one you use, ranging from forcibly throwing them so they fall prone, re-rolling low damage dice, as well as a slight bonus to strength or constitution for higher damage or higher hit points. Defensive Duelist lets you add your proficiency bonus to your armor class as a reaction, which is a great pickup at higher levels and very good for a defense tank-focused paladin. The same with Durable and Tough, which simply give bonuses to constitution and hit points, and increase the minimum amount of hit points that you can regain while rolling hit dice on a short rest. Fate Touched and Shadow Touched grant excellent spell options while also being very good flavor for effects gained by exploring other planes or interacting with powerful extraplanar creatures, such as a Paladin of the Oath of the Watchers. Fighting Initiate is great because it gives you an additional fighting style, which means that you can benefit from not just one, but two, while Magic Initiate gives you access to 2 cantrips and 1 first level spell from a number of different spell lists, which in turn gives the Paladin a little bit more versatility in their casting. Great Weapon Master and Polar Master both couple very nicely with smites from Paladins who focus on the Great Weapon fighting style. And Medium Armor Master and Heavy Armor Master grant additional protective bonuses to your character in the form of AC increases and damage reduction. Then there's Mobile, Mage Slayer, and Sentinel, the trifecta bread and butter feats for all melee fighters, granting utterly essential additions to attacks that hinder enemy spellcasters, stopping unwanted movement, and evading attacks of opportunity from enemies. And then lastly, there's Shield Master, granting bonuses to their dexterity saving throws and the ability to shove targets as a bonus action. Depending on the feats that you choose, a Paladin can end up being a great damage dealer and striker, or can focus predominantly on defending themselves and others with very high HP pools as well as high armor class. Now, before we get to our homebrew magic item this evening, here are a couple that I would definitely recommend DMs use as great rewards for Paladin PCs or as tools for Paladin NPCs to have during combat. Your focus is going to be predominantly on damage accentuating items or items that offer the Paladin more support potential, as well as some supplementary items for those weaker saving throws like dexterity, constitution, intelligence, and so on. And with that said, our homebrew magic item this evening is known as the Dark Avenger, which is a +2 greatsword that requires attunement by a Paladin and deals an additional 1d6 psychic damage to all creatures of the chaotic alignment. While attuned to this item, the Paladin can choose to change their damage type of their smites to necrotic damage instead of radiant damage. And additionally, once per short rest, the Paladin can choose to mark a target that it can see within 60 feet as the center of its enmity. For 1 minute, the Paladin can add its proficiency bonus to the damage rolls of all successful attacks made against that enemy. And if that enemy ends up falling to 0 hit points, the Paladin can choose another target it can see within 60 feet to become its new center of enmity. It is important to note that changing from one target to another does not reset the 1 minute timer, and the original target has to fall to 0 hit points before the Paladin can switch. The damage type changing ability of this item is particularly useful for creatures who may be resistant or even immune to radiant damage, as well as giving a little bit more of an intimidating edge to your Paladin should you want it. That and we're all familiar with the +5 Holy Avenger meme, so I figured why not give the Paladin a darker reflection of that. With that said, that's our coverage of the Paladin, everybody. I want to thank all of you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and also comment down below about your Paladin characters, your Paladin NPCs, 5e bills, cool magic items that you guys encountered, and also let me know what you guys would like to see in upcoming videos. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.